Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Waxman Bakshi. Today is January 9th, 2025. It is now 461 days that 100 people, including 2 young children, women, and elderly, are still in Hamas's brutal captivity. Tell Hamas and their backers, let them go now. This is a live daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's office. Please start sending in your questions in the chat now, and I'll answer what I can at the end. Israel's soldiers recovered the remains of Muslim hostage Yusuf Ziadne from a Gaza terror tunnel. Yusuf was killed in Hamas captivity. There were also findings relating to Yusuf's son, Hamza. Hamas took 4 Ziadne hostages, the father and 3 of his children, on October 7th. 2 Ziadne children came home in the November 2023 deal. Hamas murdered over 24 Muslim Israelis in the October 7th massacre. Hamas held at least 8 Muslim Israelis captive in its terror dungeons. These are Arabic-speaking, Islam-believing people, many with relatives in the Gaza Strip. Surprised? That's right. Muslims in Gaza hold Muslim hostages because they are Israeli. The Jewish state risks soldiers to rescue them, because every Israeli, no matter what their religion, deserves to be safe at home with their family. The name Hamas means Islamic Resistance Movement. Hamas said it's fighting against the Jews for Muslims. Hamas are cynical liars. Hamas do not value human life, Jewish or Muslim, in Israel or Gaza. Hamas endangers Gazan lives by fighting from behind them. No one, Muslims or Christians, Jews or Arabs, can live with Hamas still in Gaza. Israel fights to preserve life, all life. Hamas sanctifies death. Remember, at least 1 Muslim is still held hostage by Hamas. Hisham el-Sayed is a mentally handicapped young man. Hamas has been holding him for 10 years and is refusing to release him. At least 7 Muslims were murdered in Israel by Hamas rockets on October 7th, including 4 teenage brothers whose home was directly hit. At least 19 Muslims were executed by Hamas death squads on October 7th in kibbutzim, driving on the roads, and at the beach. Fatma al-Talakat, mother of 9, was on her way to work. She was wearing a religious head covering, the hijab, clearly identifying her as a Muslim woman. Hamas murderers shot her 40 times. Many Muslim Israelis risked their own lives in order to save the lives of innocent Israelis. Osama Abu Asa, a security guard at the Nova Music Festival, was murdered, protecting young festival goers, hiding in a bomb shelter. He thought Hamas wouldn't kill him because he was a Muslim. Minivan driver Yosef al-Ziadna, a distant cousin of Yusuf Ziadne, risked his life to rescue Nova Festival goers. He saved 30 people by driving through Hamas gunfire. Another cousin was murdered while doing the same. Israel is a haven of normalcy for Jewish and Muslim people. Hamas is a threat to all people. Do you know what about the recovery of Yusuf Ziadne's remains disturbed me? Hamas, days ago, leaked a list of 34 captives to be freed. Yusuf Ziadne is on that list. But we now know that Yusuf Ziadne has not been alive for some time. Last week, Hamas said they would only provide a list of living captives after a ceasefire. Hamas is again demanding Israel's soldiers withdraw from Gaza before a deal. Hamas is again demanding the release of the bloodiest murderers from Israel's prisons. Hamas is demanding Israel capitulate without releasing the hostages so it can hold on to hostages for insurance while planning more October 7th. Hamas has rejected every hostage deal. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken just said, what we've seen time and again is Hamas not concluding a deal that it should have concluded. Does Hamas really want to release our captives? Israel wants a deal to bring our hostages home from Hamas's terror dungeons today. Israel wants a deal that won't allow Hamas to kidnap more hostages tomorrow. Israel wants a deal that won't allow Hamas to execute more innocent people, ever. The war that Hamas declared on the people of Israel cannot end with hostages in Gaza and Hamas on its feet. Another reminder about Hamas. Yesterday, Hamas again fired at a humanitarian aid crossing. Hamas want to stop aid coming into the Gaza Strip. They haven't succeeded. Yesterday, 255 humanitarian aid trucks entered the Gaza Strip from Israel. 172 truckloads of aid were collected from the Gazan side of the border by international organizations. 800 truckloads of UN aid still await collection. 20 patients and caregivers entered Israel from the Gaza Strip en route to medical treatment in Jordan. Yesterday, despite Hamas's attack on aid, Israel continued to provide high levels of aid to Gaza. Hamas cannot win its war with Israel, but Hamas is instead trying to win a war against Gazans. Hamas hopes that if they make Gazans suffer enough, the world will pressure Israel to let Hamas remain. That cannot happen. The day this war ends is the day after Hamas. Let's take some questions now from our audience watching live on social media.
Our first question today comes from Farah on social media, who asks, I've been reading about Islamic extremist groups in Canada looking to hold a caliphate conference. Can you explain what's happening?
Yes, absolutely. And as a Canadian myself, this boils my blood. There is an organization. Their name is Hizb. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right. Hizb ut Tahrir. And this organization has been banned in various countries in Europe, such as Germany. They are an Islamic extremist group, and they hold an annual conference called the Caliphate Conference. So this year will be the Caliphate 2025 conference. And basically, this is an anti-Semitic, misogynistic organization that wants to spread Sharia law by creating a caliphate. For those of you who don't know what that means, it basically means one Islamic state ranging across Southern Europe, Northern Africa, and the Middle East. Of course, within their mandate, they want to eradicate the state of Israel. They are very clear and open about it. And this organization was supposed to hold its annual conference in a city just outside of Toronto called Mississauga. The mayor released a statement that she is pleased that it will not be held in Mississauga for various reasons, but they have moved this conference about 50 kilometers down the highway to my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario. It is completely outrageous that in a country, in such a diverse country like Canada, such a welcoming country like Canada that prides itself on love and multiculturalism, that there are conferences that are calling for the eradication of the state of Israel, that are spreading dangerous, violent, jihadi ideologies on Canadian soil. They are misogynistic, they are anti-Semitic, and there is no room for these organizations in Canada.
Our next question comes from Aaron on X, who asks, I keep seeing reports of Jews criticizing Israel from various parts of the world. Why is it that these self-hating Jews don't understand the mission of the Jewish people?
Okay, so I personally wouldn't call them all self-hating Jews. I know there's, we sometimes we tend to call them that because they don't support the state of Israel. But I do want to break this down on a few different levels. First of all, criticism of the policies of the state of Israel is completely okay. In fact, the beauty of living in a democracy like I do is that I, as an Israeli citizen, can criticize the policies of my government. And I don't necessarily need to agree with them all. And nothing will happen to me if I say that out loud. What we're seeing with these so-called Jewish organizations around the world, it's important to take these all with a grain of salt because they are being funded and backed by Qatari organizations, and they are being promoted on various medias such as Al Jazeera. And we've seen that they don't consist entirely of Jewish people. Now, that being said, there are Jewish people who define themselves today in some weird way as anti-Zionist, which I think they've kind of mistaken what it means to be an anti-Zionist, because one of the major premises of the faith of Judaism is the belief that we all come from the land of Israel and that we belong to the land of Israel. So it kind of contradicts itself from the get-go to say I'm Jewish, yet I don't believe in Jews' right to live in Israel. But that all being said, what we are seeing with these young Jewish people across North America is that the same kind of rhetoric, the same indoctrination, the same false narrative, false information that is being fed across traditional media and social media that is reaching everyone, it is reaching Jewish youth as well. And so I wouldn't call these people self-hating Jews. In fact, quite the opposite. It is very Jewish in nature to feel for innocent people when they lose their life. Just like we here in Israel do not want to see any innocent children, any innocent Palestinian children lose their life, it is very Jewish to have compassion for them. The problem is their facts are just wrong. They are just wrong in their narrative, they are wrong in the history, and they are wrong in thinking that it is possible to be Jewish and not believe in the Jewish people's right to live in the land of Israel.
Our next question comes from Adam Wilkinson 71 on Instagram, who asks, will Donald Trump put troops on the ground in Gaza to help rescue hostages?
That's a great question. No one really knows what is going on inside of Donald Trump's head right now, except for Donald Trump. We have seen him make statements that all hell will break loose if Hamas doesn't release the hostages by the time he is made president once again. We have seen also that he has sent an envoy right now to Doha, Qatar, to continue pushing for negotiation. I don't know what he means when he says all hell will break loose, but I think that his rhetoric and how he's speaking right now to the terrorist organization is exactly how we should be speaking to terrorists. We should not only threaten them, but we should also act on those threats and be made serious so that they know you don't mess with democracies, you don't take innocent people hostage, you don't wage war if you're not prepared to lose it.
And our last question today comes from Hadass on Air from Instagram, who asks, what can ordinary people like us do to help spread awareness about Israel and prevent brainwashing happening abroad?
Great question. I think the best thing to do is to have real personal conversations with people and to explain it in a way that the other side will have compassion so that they understand that we are human beings as well. And obviously get your resources. It's great that you're here and tuned in, because if you continue watching our daily briefings, you will have the information, but you really do need to kind of be up to date with your facts and just have a real in-person conversation. Obviously use your social media, share news that is not on traditional media. You know, we had a terrorist attack just this week here in Israel. I did not see it anywhere on the BBC, on Fox, on CNN, nowhere. So people need to understand what is continuing to happen, that there are constant, ballistic missiles coming in from the Houthis in Yemen. That's not making the news anymore as well. So just continue speaking up, continue raising awareness, and show them that we are real people and everyone is suffering in the conflict, and that it is so simple. I'm going to end on this note. Whoever wants the war to end needs to demand that Hamas lay down its weapons, surrender, and release the hostages, and all the bloodshed could end tomorrow. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will be back on Sunday at 3 p.m. Israel time, 8 a.m. East Coast time. Thank you very much for watching.